is kind of snuffy. Cold chill up your spine, you'll get your ass moving some.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy Monday. It's a little late getting it out to you again, but hey, that's just kind of how I roll, I suppose. This is the friggin' Farm and Ranch Report for Monday, June 1st, 2026. I was going to add an extra 20 in there because, well, I can't do that right now. $20 don't go very far. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, right now I'm live on YouTube and TikTok. Computer's bogging down a little bit because I got TikTok thing running concurrently. Hopefully I can get that to where I can just run it all through my studio. But anyway, got a whole bunch of talking a whole bunch of nonsense that you guys don't want to hear. But if you're listening on Apple or Spotify and you like what I'm doing, just remember this is what I read or what I read to you, but all the stuff that goes into it, where I get my information, can be found over at Substack, burningdaylight.substack.com. Subscribe over there as a paying member, and you get all the charts, the graphs, the rundowns, the full readout of what I put together on this show, and you get access to the apps that I'm building. We got a Man About a Horse, which is my equine intelligence app, and it's pretty cool. There's a couple different features. The See a Man About a Horse app feature on the Man About a Horse app. It helps you price your horse, figure out what it's worth, and where the best place to market it is. It does need some work, so I need some help with that. So if you're interested and you like looking at horses, you're trading horses, you're selling, and make your living off of horses, hit me up, and I would love to have you guys help me out, get this thing really, really tuned in, and you'll get some extra perks for helping me test it out. Also, I've got the Burning Daylight Report dashboard, which is what I use to put all this stuff together. It's kind of a news aggregator, market reader, and market predictor, kind of. We're still working on that, but that's getting dialed in. And I got to say, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So anyway, it reads the markets. It's got a bunch of ag news. It's got a bunch of foreign policy and domestic policy news. I think Drudge app, but better, or the Drudge Report, but better. And also, it's got a war tracker that shows you what the current conflict's going on, and today, and over the current conflicts around the world. It keeps you up to date on those, and I think that's important because the United States of America is involved in a whole bunch of them. And I know that if you're listening to this show, you may be in the military, but you dang sure know somebody who is. So anyway, please check that out. And that's all over at burningdaylight.substack.com. I also use that war tracker to update my war reel, which I think is important for you guys to hear, because not only is it your friends and your family doing the fighting, it's also your tax dollars paying for it all, and also reaping the benefits of these high deals, because we went gallivanting around the Middle East again. Okay. But that's all I got. burninDaylight.substack.com, and check out all the other social medias there. Not as active as I once was, but I still post from time to time. All right, let's get into the show. Where's my slideshow? There we are. Okay. So here's what we got for tonight. The board got absolutely smoked today. Just got its teeth kicked in. Live cattle were down $11. Wheat was down 23 cents. Corn was off about 8 cents, and crude oil went the other direction. And my script that I had AI make for me here says, well, I'll pull Ron Burgundy. And crude oil somehow went the other direction. That somehow means we're still at war in the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, and all that good stuff. It's real doozy, fellas. Real doozy. Anyway, West Texas index on the crude oil was up 4% to $92 a gallon, or a barrel, not a gallon. But it's not a contradiction, and that's kind of the whole story. We're going to walk through why these two things happen at the same time and what it means for your output going forward, and more importantly, your checkbook, and more importantly, your outlook going forward. All right, let's read it down here a little bit. Tail of the tape here is the board versus the cash market, and it is the widest gap of the year, coming in around $16. June live cattle closed down at 240.40 and 40 cents a hundred. That was down $11.03, a 4.5% haircut on a single day. That's not just a wobble; that's a pretty big statement. Feeder cattle was down $3 at 351.18. That's off about a full percent. Corn 444.50 or 444.5. That's down 8 cents. Soybeans at 11.81 and a quarter, down 4 cents. Pretty well flat. And then here's the kicker: Kansas City hard red winter wheat 646.5. That was down 23 and a quarter cent. We'll come back to that, but that's a big number. Lean hogs closed out at 99.73. That was up $2. I don't know if that number's accurate. I gotta do some checking on that. My lean hogs number is kind of wonky, a little squirrely for a hog. All right. So here's the thing, though. The board is at 240, and on the June live contract, and the 5 area cash trade last week, as we reported, 256.81. And that was for live cattle, 405 dressed. It's a $16 spread between what the futures say cattle are worth and what actual feeders got paid for actual cattle going to an actual kill plant. $16. The board and the barn are not telling the same story. One of them's lying, and you guys know where I stand on this. The cash market is the market. And it's been printing rich all spring. The 5 area average hasn't been below 255 since February, and the board keeps chopping. That's not true. The 5 area hasn't been below like 245 maybe since February, and the board keeps chopping lower like that we're in a bear market, but we're not. We're in the tightest cow herd nationally since Harry Truman was in the White House, and that means something's going on. Well, we got a couple things here. So number one, the May cattle on feed report came in heavier than the trade wanted. So 11.6 million head on feed. I think it was 11.584 was a little more precise number there, but call it 11.6. It was up 2% year over year. I'm doing a lot of repeating. You have to. What was that character on Goodfellas? Johnny 2 times, because he said everything 2 times. Anyway, 11.58 million head on feed. That was up 2% year over year, and placements were up 6% year over year. It was the first year over year increase in 18 months on cattle on feed. The paper traders saw that, and they sold. Two, the other one is crude oil spiked 4% today. And all the trade algorithms are seeing geopolitical risk repricing across the commodity complex and selling the stuff that looks extended, which is the cattle. But my read is the board is handing you a discount against the cash. How long that lasts depends on whether the feeders hold their ground this week or they blink. And based on what we're seeing in the sale barns, I don't think they're going to blink. And last week it did dip a little bit from record highs, but there was not very many cattle traded last week. The stinker of it is, though, we have about 2 million head of cattle that are overextended, I guess, is what you would say. So 2 million head that were. I'm sorry, I'm checking my TikTok. I'm new to the TikTok live stuff, and I'm looking at it to see what we got going on. I don't think anybody's listening live right at the moment, but we did have a few people drop in. Okay, so based on what we've been seeing in the sale barns, I don't think the cash cattle side is going to blink, and that 2 million head on feed have been on feed for over 180 days. That's the 2 million I'm talking about, which means we got a lot of cattle that need to go to harvest, and but we also got packers discounting the heavy carcasses a lot, and heavier than last year, and the feeders are saying no. Our cattle are worth $260 $100, and they've been getting it. So we'll see if they decide to go ahead and move some this week. And I would venture to guess they're probably going to have to, because at some point that big dock on heavy cattle is going to be justified, because your cattle are just going to be sloppy at that point. All right, so let's go into the sale barn stuff. So should have had this one up already. Need my slide prompts in the transcript over here. Script, not transcript, will be later. Anyway, so again, this is what the board is missing here, and maybe they're not missing it. Some of them are, because futures market is very speculative. But we are the tightest national cow herd since Harry Truman, and the 5-area cash trade has been running above 250 for several weeks now. So and then running just below 250 for even longer. Let's get to the sale barn numbers. So on the Burnin Daylight report, I've got 20 markets around the country that I'm tracking. So as of close today, we had 20 markets, 20,938 head, 20,938 head, averaging 394 a hundredweight. Some of the standouts was Cattlemen's Livestock Exchange there in Arkansas, 459 pound calves, bringing 475. That's not much of a discount there. In Chakota, Oklahoma, we had 526 pound cattle at 429. We talked about Bassett, Nebraska last week, and they really cleaned up. They had 3,476 head through the ring, bringing 646 pounds, or averaging 646, and bringing 464 average. They threw a small army of cattle through, and they still averaged 464. That's a lot. That's a lot of news coming out of Nebraska there. Over in Crawford, Nebraska, we had 4,498 head, 854 pounds, averaging 370. So this is where you kind of feel the board drag on the heavy feeders. 8 weights are off their highs, and the 4 weights are not. The 4 weights are just cruising right along. So bottom line on the sale barn is the calves are still printing rich, light calves. The heavy feeders are starting to feel what the board is feeling, and the gap between 400 pounders and 800 or 900 pounders probably haven't been wider ever on a dollar per head basis. So if you got you got calves and grass this summer, you're sitting in a pretty good spot. But if you bought 9 weights 6 weeks ago, expecting the board to follow the cash higher, this week's a little uncomfortable. We'll see how it plays out, but it's been kind of a steady trend. Is the over 7 weights have been getting docked pretty good at the sale barns, while the 4 and 5 weights are just people can't buy them fast enough. All right, let's talk about the grain side of things. It's not what I'm looking at. All right, here we go. No, that's inputs. Where the hell is my grain? You're getting a preview of what we're going to talk about. All right, well, we'll go there we go. There it is. Found it. Quit looking, guys. The board finally gave some back on the wheat. Kansas City hard red winter wheat is down 23 1/4 cents today. Chicago soft red off similar money. After a run that took the Kansas City wheat from low 5s to the high 6s on the back of the WASDE report and the shock that had, plus the Black Sea risk, the board is kind of digesting. The context you need, though, the May WASDE put U.S. all wheat production at 1.56 billion bushels. That was down 424 million from last year, and below the lowest trade estimate that any analyst had on the board going in. So it's not a small miss. They really missed that one. So that's a USDA print that surprised everybody who was paying attention and everybody who wasn't. Kansas winter wheat condition as of this week has 15% good to excellent. That's 1.5. In a normal year, you'd want to be in the 50s. In a drought year, you're thanking the Lord for 30% numbers. 15% disaster number. That's if this was African country, that'd be like famine levels. The crop is basically all headed out now, and what's out there is in poor to very poor condition for the most part. So why is the board selling off? Because traders got long on the WASDE report, and now they're taking some profit. It's not a fundamental change. The crop is still short, extremely short, and the Black Sea premium is still very much there. And there's the war risk on Hormuz, and now Iran is threatening Bab al-Mandab, which is the outlet or the inlet that goes into the Suez Canal through Djibouti and what's his Eritrea, I think maybe. Maybe it's Yemen. Probably Yemen. So, anyways, today is noise on top of a signal that hasn't really changed much. The futures guys are taking a little bit of profit here, but I would imagine that wheat's going to stay kind of high, especially when you're looking at a 15% good to excellent rating across Kansas, which is the biggest wheat producing state in the country. For the rancher trying to buy hay or feed wheat, the dip today might be the best price you see in a bit. For the row crop guys, 15% good to excellent in Kansas means a lot of that failed wheat country becomes summer grazing and emergency hay acres. So there's a supply story with a little bit of a silver lining if you're in the right place. But if you're a wheat guy, if you're a wheat farmer, little tough, but nothing you ain't used to, right? Corn is at $4.44. That was down 8 cents. Soybeans about $11.81. Nothing dramatic. They're just kind of floating sideways in that same range that we've been in all spring. The WASD has corn production at 15.9 billion acres, with ending stocks near 2 billion. It's a big crop on paper. The market agrees with it, so I wouldn't expect too much of a corn rally unless the June weather gets real ugly real fast. If we're talking drought and hail, depending on which part of the country you're in, and maybe both at the same time. So that's how the corn or the grain market went. Corn's still, it's not cheap, but it's not. It's relatively cheap. Wheat took a little bit of a haircut, but I don't see that dipping a whole lot. All right, let's talk about the inputs here. That's where we got out of order. All right. So on the crude oil side, West Texas index was up 4% today. Closed out at 93 something a barrel. 92.33 a barrel. That was up 4%. That's not a routine move. That's the market repricing something that happened today. And what happened was Iran suspended ceasefire talks again after another round of U.S. strikes, and also Israeli strikes in Lebanon. That's a story that doesn't get reported a whole lot. There's a lot of talk about Israel, and rightfully so. But what about Israel? It's not just that they're striking Iran, but they're also fighting Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and they've been intensifying their strikes there as well as their ground operation. And Iran has made that very clear that's any ceasefire that they enter into has to include Lebanon as well. And Israel is not really helping us out much there. They're in no hurry to slow down, and they're frankly fine just throwing a wrench in these ceasefire talks. The White House said, and I'm not making this up, that there would be no final deal. It's the same administration last week that told CNBC that negotiations were, quote, very boring. And we went from boring to bombing in about 72 hours. And now Iran is not just threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz again. They're renewing threats close to Bab al-Mandab, which is in the south. It's a strait between Yemen and Djibouti. It's the southern entrance to the Red Sea. You close that, and you've essentially shut off the Suez Canal from the east. But you close that and Hormuz at the same time, and you've got 2 out of the 5 main oil export routes on the planet shut down simultaneously. And that's why crude oil is up 4% on a Monday in June. So how does this land on everybody here? Well, diesel's already sitting at $5.52 a gallon. So we got a little bit of relief on the national average. Last week, it was sitting about $5.60. I would imagine that's probably going to shoot back up. Maybe not this week, but definitely it's going to shoot back up. The diesel prices follow the crude oil prices, but there is a delay on that. For the context, diesel's up 46% since February, and that 555 to 560 has kind of been a real sticky floor over the past month or so. So it's already been sticky, and we've been talking about that new floor since March. But if the crude stays there, the next EIA read's going to be higher. Farm diesel is already up 46% since February. So every load of hay that you haul, every trip to the sale barn, every irrigation pump you run, if you're farming and ranching, that's very real cost to you. But as a general consumer, which I am at the moment, everything that gets shipped to you, which is everything, unless it's grown right in your backyard or produced right in your backyard, that gets put on a ship or a truck or a train, and that still uses diesel, and a lot of it. So shipping on everything just went up. On the fertilizer side, DAP's around 860, urea's around 865, anhydrous ammonia was at 1118. All of them are higher than a year ago and considerably higher than a year ago. And all of them are tied to that same global gas and shipping market that is getting squeezed right now. The FTC has a formal investigation with subpoena using Coke on their fertilizer pricing. That's good for the long run, but it doesn't help your spring bill at all. Corn's down 8 cents on the day, which is a little bit of a relief on your ration side of things. Soybean meal is off a little bit too, so little bit of comfort on the feed side, but not a whole lot when your diesel's running at 550. But it's better than nothing. So we'll get into that war reel here in a minute. But talk about some of the threads that we've been covering here lately, and just some updates. Not a ton going on, but on the Big Four Packer antitrust probe, we covered it last week again. But Tyson Foods settled a civil antitrust class action lawsuit in Minnesota for $47 million, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But when you're Tyson Foods, it's a drop in the bucket. That's a multi-billion-dollar operation, global operation. So this lawsuit covers commercial and institutional beef buyers, not the ranchers directly. But what it means is Tyson just wrote a check that says we'd rather pay this than have a jury hear the full case. So it's a signal about where their mind is, and is not, but definitely not a resolution on anything, especially if you're a cattle operator. So at the same time we got that going on, the FTC stood up in Texas and announced a formal fertilizer pricing investigation with subpoena power against the major manufacturers. It's a separate case, but it is the same pattern. This is what I was talking about, I believe it's Thursday or Friday, saying Trump is at some points here on the domestic side, at least, trying to play his best Teddy Roosevelt impression and going after the corruption. But at the same time, he's went full George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Bill Clinton to some extent, pretty good extent. And then George H.W. before and Reagan before him, and going gallivanting off in the Middle East, trying to slay the big Islamic dragon. But all of these signals say that maybe, nothing has actually happened yet outside of this class action settlement with Tyson. But as far as like a federal investigation, they're open, they're ongoing, but there's nothing really been happening on that end. So the DOJ criminal probe on the beef is still running in parallel. There's no new docket movement to report since the last time I reported it. They had their big press conference, and they said a lot of nice stuff, but still nothing new to report on there. But the architecture is now we got DOJ criminal investigation on beef, FTC civil investigation on fertilizer, and a settlement out of Minnesota on a civil suit, all in hand. It's not a blue ribbon panel, but it's a multi-front legal action. We will see where it goes. Our Senate Bill 424, it's the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act, is in committee in the Senate. That's the bill that would force the more negotiated cash trade and shine more light on how the board gets manipulated against cash. So if you pair that with today's $16 cash to board futures board gap, and you've got a real-time exhibit for why that bill matters. The next angle the system wants me, I'm pulling Ron Burgundy there. The next angle I'm supposed to cover on this thread is what this actually means for the cow-calf outfit versus a feed yard versus a packer. So we'll get into that soon. But for tonight, I just know that the pressure is mounting from multiple directions at once, and Tyson did blink. It wasn't a big blink, but it was a blink. On the farm bill side, the House passed the Farm Food and National Security Act of 2026. That's House Resolution 7567. Back on April 30th, it's now in the Senate, and the Senate Ag Committee was targeting late May to early June for markup. So this week, maybe next week, maybe never, maybe go fuck yourself. That's what they're saying to you. And with Thomas Massey getting booted out of Congress, the Prime Act will be probably on the chopping block. Don't be surprised if you get some more shielding from these pesticide and herbicide companies from that shield them from legal action. Put back into it, because it's still got to go back to the House after the Senate marks it up. It has to go back to the House to be voted on, and then I think it can go to the president if it's passed there. The American Beef Labeling Act, that's Senate Bill 785, has a cloture motion filed. And a cloture motion means somebody thinks they have 60 votes to force a floor vote on restoring the country of origin labeling. That's the MCOOL bill that ranchers have been trying to get back since 2015. If that holds, it's the biggest cattle labeling development in a decade. The base acre review window opened on today, June 1st. So you have until August 31st to review and consider base acre increases for your ARC and PLC. So the window's open. Don't sleep on that. This MCOOL Act, I'll be surprised if it gets passed, but it could. I think there's probably plenty of Democrats that'll get on board because it'll piss off some of the Republicans. I was originally against MCOOL because I'm a free trade, a free markets type of guy, and I've switched my tune on that. Especially the more I learned about how the packers manipulate that whole system, and they essentially get a box of imported lean trimmings, cut it open, peel the label off, rewrap it with the label that says product of the USA, and then it gets sold as U.S. raised beef. It's a really a horseshit rinky-dink operation that they do, and the packers will complain about costs, and they always will. And they'll eventually either gouge the ranchers or pass it on to the consumer, or both. But I'm of the mind now that we do have to have some sort of that they've been using that loophole for years now to get around imported beef being labeled as U.S. product of the U.S. We already talked about the sale barn stuff. Okay, so we had 20,938 head sold on the 20 markets that I'm following. 394 average. The lightweights are going like hotcakes, and the heavies are kind of following the board and feeling the pinch there. The spread between the barn and the board, the cash and the board and the barn cash is the widest it's been all year. So we'll see how that holds up. So on your feedlot margins and leverage, here's just a real simple profit and loss for this week. So a pen of 7 weight steers that you placed on feed 60 days ago in the Southern Plains probably cost somewhere around $2,000 to $2,300 a head. We'll call it 320 to 330 on your set. That's per hundredweight on 700 pounds. They're now coming out around 1150 around today. Probably hitting. It could be hitting 1200, 1250. At 390 to 400 on the hook, they're worth right about $4,800 to $5,200 a head. Your feed costs over 60 days. Corn's at $464. That's 30 pounds a day. 60 days, roughly $800 in grain plus hay and overhead. So call it $1,000 total in feed. Your freight's going to run another 60 to $80 a head, and you're still making money, but not a ton. What was that? I had a slide on that. There we go. There's the feed yard math. Park myself up in the corner so you can see it a little better. So call it $1,000 on a head on feed. Freight's another 60 to 80, and then you're making some money, but it's not a whole lot. And if the cash holds at that 256 and the Packers don't shave the bid down even further this week, the feedlots are going to be okay. But if the board drags the cash market down 10 or $12 over the next 2 weeks, that math gets really ugly really fast. So the leverage question is this week is, do the yards have enough room to say no to lower bids? With 11.6 million head on feed and placements running pretty hot, Packers have a little more ammo than they did in April, but cash has been holding for months, and the barns are still pointing towards the rich side. I would expect sideways to maybe slightly softer cash prices this week, with the feeders depending the bid harder than the board thinks they should. And I also we got almost 2 million head that are ready to go, and not a whole lot sold last week. So I would expect it to be a little bit softer because some guys are going to have to move some cattle. Let's go back to the drought. Here's the drought. So this thread, we'll keep it active because you're in agriculture. You live and die by the weather. And it's not real pretty out there. So more than 60% of the lower 48 is in some level of abnormally dry or drought conditions per the latest drought monitor. The Southeast, which is Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, is running about 60 to 66% in D2 to D4 range. The high plains and parts of the northern Rockies are stressed. The western Corn Belt has new pockets of D0 and D1 starting to creep in after a little bit of a dry stretch in May. And NOAA's, the NOAA, that's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I believe that's right. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Their seasonal outlook for the summer, drought is expected to persist or redevelop in the Northwest across the northern plains and into the upper Midwest. Some relief is expected in the southern plains and the Four Corners area, but it's not real good news if you're in Montana, Idaho, or the Dakotas, or the Nebraska Panhandle, and Sand Hills, which are burnt all to hell. So there are guys. You got guys already liquidating herds there, and then supposed to be pretty drouthy again. So, Kansas wheat's at 15% good to excellent, which means a lot of those failed acres can become emergency grazing ground this summer. But that's a double-edged sword because more grazing opportunity on the front end, but less hay and straw production on the back end. And wheat's gonna get more expensive with less of it out there. That's just how market economics work. Coal cow prices are worth watching, though. We haven't seen a huge liquidation signal yet, but the barns aren't showing any abnormally heavy runs or weird class mixes. But if July turns hot and dry across the northern plains, that could change pretty fast. So The ranch on paper scenario, if you lose 40% of your grazing days in July and August, that's a direct conversation about which cows earn a spot to stay on the ranch and who earns a spot on the truck headed to the sale barn. Where's my policy? Here we go. That's where we're looking at. Ag policy and range rules. So we got a couple different items tonight. We got an Oregon ballot initiative. Oregon is just as retarded as California. I've never been there. I've got some good friends in Oregon, but they will also agree that Oregon's retarded. Proposed ballot measure would amend animal cruelty laws to ban dehorning, tail docking, artificial insemination, hunting, and fishing in Oregon. So if that qualifies and passes, which, I mean, it may, I don't know. You would think it wouldn't, but also Oregon's retarded. Remember, Portland is in Oregon, the capital of Oregon. So if that qualifies and passes, it effectively ends conventional cattle and sheep production in the state of Oregon. That's not theoretical. California's Prop 12 went to the Supreme Court and it won. Oregon is that new front. So if you're in the state of Oregon and you like ranching and think it should continue, go ahead and vote against that. Please do. On the screwworm update, we now got a screwworm within 30 miles of the U.S. border. I think it's 31 to be exact. Reuters confirmed this on the 29th of May. Was that Friday? Yeah. Mexico has activated emergency measures and the southern border here, and there's still no plan to reopen it. USDA has explicitly said they're watching it day by day. And if the screwworm does cross into the U.S., that becomes a national cattle emergency, not just an exaggeration. So every rancher in the Southwest, make sure you know what to do with screwworm. Keep in touch with your state vet. And, yeah, keep an eye out. Hopefully they can get those bastards knocked down. But I've never seen them, but it seems like a nasty deal. USDA brucellosis surveillance zone expansion in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho is still in the proposed rulemaking. Additional counties adjacent to the greater Yellowstone area would require more testing and documentation for cattle and bison moving in and out. That comment period is open, so make your voice heard. Now we're on... Nope, that's the screwworm one. Where is... Need my war reel. There we go. So let's we'll do a little short version. God dang it. I lost my slideshow. Don't worry though. I'll be right back. Carry on with your bad selves. Here it is. Okay. Continue on as that loads. So they ran ceasefire from Friday is dead as of this afternoon. The White House said no final deal is coming after another round of U.S. strikes on Iran. So we went from a very boring negotiation, a direct quote from the president to CNBC, to active strikes and a collapsed ceasefire in about 72 hours total. Again, I don't see this thing ending with any sort of happy resolution. And if we continue to just go along with whatever Israel does in Lebanon and keep pushing this war forward in Iran, that means a lot more at stake for your U.S. cattle producer. Well, and just fuel prices in general. It makes it a real big thing. And the administration will talk about all these ships that are coming to buy U.S. oil, and that's all well and good, but that just drives the prices up here too. So we're energy independent, and we're the biggest oil exporter on earth, but now we're about to become even bigger oil exporters, and you have that whole Middle East region shut down. And so there's going to be some people that make a lot of money. There already have been people that made a lot of money on this deal, but those aren't the normal people. Your average everyday American is going to feel it even tighter as that fuel still ratchets up even more. Because if they don't come to some sort of situation, don't expect that fuel bill to come down anytime soon. That Iran is like, we've hit them hard, no doubt about it. We killed their supreme leader, and we got a total blockade going. But they're still there. They're still hanging in there, doing their thing. Still don't have my slideshow up. I don't know what happened to it. But I am going to close out this TikTok one. It's slowing my computer down. All right. That'll help some. Let's see if I can finally get this damn thing uploaded so you can see where we're at. Okay, so now, but Iran's not just threatening Hormuz again. So just consider that closed again. But they're also renewing explicit threats to close Bab al-Mandab as well. So, like I said, it's the strait between Yemen and Djibouti, and it's at the bottom of the Red Sea. It's how the tankers get into the Suez Canal. So if you close that and Hormuz at the same time, you've got a pretty big deal going. 40% of the world's major oil routes shut down simultaneously. That's a pretty big deal. And that's why the West Texas crude index is up 4% to 92.33 today. It's not a technical move. Again, it's the market pricing in the possibility of both exits from the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea to get choked off in the same week. And to bring it home on that, the Fertilizer Institute CEO told the Senate Ag Committee that 34% of global urea moves through the Strait of Hormuz. And urea is already sitting at $8.65 a ton. It's up 47% since February. 47%. It's a ridiculous number. I'm going to try this slideshow one more time before I call it quits. And it's loading. Diesel nationally is at $5.52. Farm diesel's up 46% since the end of February. So it's not just a blip, but it's been a new floor for a couple of months now. And if the West Texas index holds above 90 or pushes towards the 95 mark before Thursday's EIA weekly report, the next diesel number is going to be up and not down. So I'll say it like I said it again on May 26th, and I'll keep saying it until something else happens. The people absorbing the cost of this conflict in the diesel and the fertilizer bills are ranchers, farmers, and anyone who moves cattle or grain for a living. The people who appear to be profiting from the timing of all these announcements around the conflict are now under investigation by the CFTC and the DOJ. So that's where we're at. It's not doomsday talk. It's just the math. So watch the West Texas index this week. If it holds, or just continues to climb upward, your input costs are going to move. And if a ceasefire gets announced, and it might, we've already had a couple of them. Who knows? And then that crude sell-off will happen, and you'll get a little bit of a window of relief. But based on how the last two ceasefires went, I wouldn't bet much of anything on it holding. So we'll see how that goes. That's all that's new on the war reel for today. So real quick policy deal. They don't need a ton of time, but probably ought to be on your radar. State of Iowa killed the ethanol excise tax for ag equipment. Governor Reynolds signed Senate File 2493. So if you're running flex fuel equipment in Iowa on E85 or above, the fuel bill got a little bit of a haircut. It's a small win, but it is real money to people out there using that stuff. The USDA base acre review window opened up this morning on June 1st. You've got till August 31st to review and consider your base acre increases for ARC and PLC. Windows open now, but don't wait until the end of August. Call your FSA office and while it's fresh on your mind and have a little chat. The livestock risk protection updates now let producers lock in futures prices up to a year out. And with the board sitting at 240 and cash printing 256, LRP is worth a serious look for anyone carrying feeders into the fall. Talk to your risk management guy before you do anything and before the board decides to catch up with the cash in the wrong direction. Senate Bill 785, that's the American Beef Labeling Act, has a cloture motion filed in the Senate. And I also wouldn't be surprised if this is just hijinks from your normal cast of characters throwing it out there for a cloture vote, knowing that they don't have the 60 and just hoping that it'll get shut down. But I'm going to be optimistic and say they maybe have 60 votes to actually get it passed. But that would restore the country of origin labeling, which hasn't been in effect since 2015. So if you care about that, now is the time to call your senator. Not next week. Do it now because they're getting ready to vote on it. Farm bill, we'll update you if there's any markup going on this week. But as of right now, not a damn thing. And they don't seem to be in too big of a hurry to do much with it either. So we'll get a kind of a quick gut check on where producer psychology sits right now, because it matters for the decisions that everybody's making. So Purdue and Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, Ag Economy Barometer is at 121 for April. That was down from 127 in March. It's the lowest it's been since October of 2024. And 2/3 of producers expect farm income to fall in 2026. 70% say it's a bad time for major capital purchases, and almost half name high input costs as the number one concern. So my read on that is the survey is capturing real pain, but it's averaging across row crop country and cattle country, and they are not telling the same story right now. So if you're farming corn in Illinois on rented ground, your 2026 budget is probably red ink. Purdue's own numbers have corn returns negative across most of the regions, and that's a bad spot to be in. But if you own cows or grass, you've got a decent calf crop on the ground, your income picture looks a little bit different. 5 area weighted average is at 256, and the national beef cow herd is at 27.6 million head, which is the smallest since 1951. The supply story doesn't fix itself in 1 or 2 years. It's long-term leverage is still with the people who own the cattle and own the grass as well. But the danger right now, it's on the cost side. With your diesel at $5.50, your nitrogen's at $8.65, and anhydrous over $1,100. Interest rates that haven't given much back either. The cow's earning money, but your inputs are eating up a lot of your profits, if not all of them, and sometimes more so than what you brought in. your job between now and fall is to make sure that the numbers on the right side of the equation stays bigger than the number on the left, and it's getting tougher to do. So, all right, that's what I got for Monday, June 1st. Do a quick little recap here. So the board's at 240, cash at 256. It's a $16 gap, and it's the widest it's been all year. The board is not the market right now. The barns are, and the weighted cash, the 5 area weighted average cash trade is the market. The cash market is the market. If the feeders hold this week, any of the feeders that hold this week are probably going to end up being right. Iran killed the ceasefire. You could say Israel killed the ceasefire. You could say that we killed the ceasefire. Either way, there's no more ceasefire, and it's Iran's threatening to close the 2 straits at once now. West Texas index up 4%. So your next diesel and fertilizer bill is probably going to be higher than before. It's definitely going to probably get higher before it gets lower. That's not just a prediction. That's just simple math. Third, the USDA base acre review window opened this morning. And that closes on August 31st. So call your FSA office. There's real money sitting on the table, and there is a real deadline for now, at least. And then on the screwworm stuff, just because I'm interested. I don't want it to cross. Definitely don't want it to cross. But I'm kind of wondering what it pays to cowboy down in Mexico. Maybe get a chance to go treat some of that stuff. I heard it's nasty. But 30 miles from the U.S. border. So if you run cattle anywhere in the Southwest, make sure you know what you're dealing with, or as much as you can. It's not fear mongering, because that shit has just been creeping closer, and they closed the distance by half since the last time I told you about it. So getting closer, and I bet everybody running cattle there on the borders starting to pucker a little bit. All right, for the full research packet, that's their barn data, all the sources, all the charts. Go to burnindaylight.substack.com. Like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all that nonsense that goes into this whole podcast machine. But please do all that. It helps me out, helps me get the show out more, which helps me bring in a little bit more money, which makes it more worthwhile for me to do. But I hope you guys enjoy what I put out. Appreciate y'all listening. Now, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright.